Soul Food, 1997, once moved the entire world with its warm family story. But what happened to the cast afterward turned out to be even more dramatic than the film itself. From the disappearance of a child star to sudden deaths that shocked the entire entertainment industry, their 27-year journey is something you won't be able to look away from. Let's discover their real names and honor the legacy they left behind. Vanessa L. Williams as Terry Joseph. Vanessa Lynn Williams was born on March 18, 1963 in the Bronx, New York. She was 34 years old when she took on the role of Terry Joseph, the sharp, wounded eldest sister whose emotional depth helped define Soul Food, 1997, and showcased her powerful acting range. But Vanessa's real life was even more turbulent than Terry's. At age 21, she became the first Black Miss America in 1984, and the first to lose her crown due to a nude photo scandal involving images secretly taken years earlier. That fall not only destroyed her public honor, but also crushed her early romantic relationships, pushing her into a spiral of emotional crisis. 3 marriages, 2 divorces, and the strain of rebuilding after repeated media scandals left Vanessa in a constant state of psychological pressure, even as she tried to stabilize her career through roles in Hoodlum and Dance With Me. But those wounds were only the tip of the iceberg. Vanessa had been sexually abused at just 10 years old, had an abortion in high school, and has lived with type 1 diabetes since childhood. Behind the stage lights of Ugly Betty, Desperate Housewives, or Candyman was a woman forcing herself to stay strong so she wouldn't collapse. By 2025, Vanessa Williams is 62 years old and continues working in film, television, and theater. She dedicates more of her time to charitable programs supporting abused children. Her estimated net worth of about $40 million stands as a milestone marking a lifelong journey of resilience against adversity. Irma P. Hall as Mother Joe, Big Mama. Irma Dolores Player Hall was born on June 3, 1935, in Beaumont, Texas. At 61 years old, she transformed into Mother Joe, Big Mama, in Soul Food, 1997. The central character, the soul of the film, and the emotional anchor for every other character. It was this exemplary image of a Black grandmother that made her an unforgettable presence in the audience's memory. Yet behind the beloved Big Mama character was a life filled with quiet hardship because her career arrived far too late. Before entering film, Irma Hall was simply a language teacher living quietly in Dallas, too occupied with family responsibilities to even think about artistic dreams. Entering the industry at age 37 meant she was constantly disadvantaged, often placed in supporting roles despite shining in A Family Thing and Backdraft. The instability of acting, the pressure of aging, and the feeling of being out of place in Hollywood kept her mental state under prolonged strain. That strain seemed to culminate in a life-or-death test in 2004, when Irma was involved in a horrific car accident during a Chicago snowstorm. Her car lost control and crashed head-on into the opposite lane, leaving her with shattered bones, a torn aorta, a broken arm, a fractured ankle, and the need for emergency heart surgery to survive. The long-term injuries made movement difficult, and her career slowed down significantly. Irma Hall continued to work, but with diminishing strength and a body marked by constant pain. Ultimately, Irma P. Hall passed away on September 12, 2024, at 88 years old, after many years quietly battling the long-lasting health consequences of that tragic accident. Her estimated net worth of about $3 million was modest, but carried deep spiritual value in what she left for future generations. Vivica A. Fox as Maxine Joseph. Vivica Anjanetta Fox was born on July 30, 1964, in South Bend, Indiana. At 33 years old, she played Maxine Joseph in Soul Food, 1997, the outspoken, hot-tempered yet deeply loving younger sister. That role made Vivica the lively, energetic spirit of the film. But behind that strength on screen was a private life filled with regrets and heartbreak. Vivica often says that not having children is the greatest regret of my life, a reality that pushed her through many unstable years in relationships. Her marriage to singer Christopher Harvest ended after 4 years. Her romance with rapper 50 Cent collapsed amid the loud scrutiny of the press, and her 10-month engagement to Omar Slim White abruptly fell apart, leaving her mentally exhausted. Those emotional wounds seeped into her work, and although she once shined in Independence Day, Set It Off, and Kill Bill, she struggled to find her footing again in Hollywood's unforgiving system. As her career began to decline, Vivica faced another unexpected blow, a false positive COVID-19 result right before the 2020 Emmy Awards, forcing her to withdraw in panic and embarrassment, even though the result was later proven wrong. In the years that followed, she had to shift to cable television, low-budget films, and independent projects. Yet Vivica kept moving forward, even when worn down by heartbreak and by the feeling of being left behind by Hollywood. By 2025, Vivica A. Fox is 61 years old and continues acting, producing films, and recently has begun exploring directing. She remains single and says she has learned to find peace with the things she cannot have, especially motherhood. Her estimated net worth of about $6 million reflects a career full of turbulence, but also the resilience of a woman who refuses to fall. Nia Long as Bird Joseph. Nia Talita Long was born on October 30th, 1970, in Brooklyn, New York, growing up amid family upheaval and constant moves. In 1997, at just 26 years old, she played Bird Joseph, the soft yet determined youngest sister who brought warmth and hope to the family. Bird became the emotional anchor of the film, making Nia Long beloved as a new icon of black cinema in the late 90s. But in contrast to Bird's brightness, Nia Long's real life was filled with emotional blows that were hard to recover from. After 13 years together, she was suddenly left heartbroken in 2022 when her fiancé, NBA coach Ime Udoka, was exposed for having an affair with an employee of the Boston Celtics. The scandal exploded across international headlines, turning the usually private Nia into a public victim of betrayal. The collapse of her longest relationship left her drained. Even more painful, Nia Long had to raise her 2 sons alone, becoming their sole support after the scandal. The pressure of being a single mother, the sting of betrayal, and Hollywood's coldness pushed her to the brink of wanting to leave the industry entirely. But like Bird in Soul Food, she chose to stand back up with determination, continuing her career through The Best Man, Empire, Fatal Affair, and most recently You People, 2023. Although life's blows cracked her heart many times, they also made her stronger. By 2025, Nia Long is 54 years old and dedicates her life to her 2 sons and to film projects with less pressure, choosing peace over chasing fame. She has become a powerful voice for women who have been betrayed, sharing her story to strengthen others. Her estimated net worth of about $15 million is the result of 3 decades of work and the resilience she built while overcoming some of the deepest wounds of her life. Carl Wright as Reverend Williams. Carl Wright was born on February 2, 1932 in Orlando, Florida. In Soul Food, 1997, he was 65 years old when he played Reverend Williams, the humorous, quick-witted pastor who always cleared the table, bringing warm laughter to the film despite being a supporting character. His role became a memorable highlight whenever fans recall the family scenes in the movie. But Carl Wright's real life was not as peaceful as the laughter he brought on screen. Before entering film, he had been a legendary tap dancer in Chicago, traveling the world on rhythm-tapping shoes. Yet that spotlight arrived early and faded quickly as he aged, forcing him to transition into acting late in life. That late start meant he was almost always on the margins, taking comedic supporting roles in films like Big Mama's House and Barbershop to make a living. Just when his acting career began to find a bit of stability, illness struck. Carl Wright faced terminal cancer, suffering pain every day that made working harder than ever. He continued acting until his body could no longer endure it, clinging to his craft as if it were his last breath. Sadly, Carl Wright passed away at his home in Chicago on May 19, 2007, at the age of 75, after quietly battling cancer. His net worth at the end of his life was just $300,000 USD, a small number, but one that clearly reflects the journey of an artist who devoted his entire life to the stage and left behind the most sincere laughter for his audience. Michael Beach as Miles. Michael Anthony Beach was born on October 30th, 1963, in Roxbury, Massachusetts. In 1997, at 34 years old, he played Miles in Soul Food, the talented yet weak-willed husband, a man lost between career ambition and family responsibility. Miles became one of the most controversial characters in the film. Off-camera, Michael Beach's life was not much different from Miles's. His 16-year marriage to his first wife, Tracy, ended in 2006, leaving behind 4 children and many long years of exhaustion from responsibility and emotional distance. That fracture pushed Beach into a period of crisis. The helplessness and heartbreak caused Hollywood to box him in as the unfaithful or problematic husband after waiting to exhale in Soul Food, making his on-screen image feel at times like a bitter punishment. The tension in his private life forced him to throw himself into work just to forget. From ER and Third Watch to Sons of Anarchy, he took on numerous heavy roles, but the more he tried to prove himself, the more he became haunted by the feeling of being misunderstood, both in his career and in life. Even so, his remarriage to Elisha Wilson helped restore some stability. By 2025, Michael Beach is 62 years old and continues acting steadily, maintaining his form through projects like Saw X, 2023, and Mayor of Kingstown. He gravitates toward more mature, less abrasive characters. His net worth is around $5 million USD. Not huge for such a long career, but enough for him to live peacefully with his second family. Gina Ravera as Faith. Gina D. Ravera was born on May 20th, 1966, in San Francisco, California, with African and Puerto Rican heritage. At 31 years old, she played Faith in Soul Food, 1997, a quiet but warm character who stood outside the family's turmoil to observe and preserve the film's gentler tones. Faith wasn't the central soul of the story, but she was the piece that helped the narrative breathe. After the film, Gina Ravera's life did not become loud or public like many of her co-stars. She lived so privately that the media could barely track any changes in her personal life. Keeping her emotions completely to herself made her career less explosive. Showgirls once brought her huge attention, but the backlash from that film made Gina more cautious about fame than anyone else. That caution caused Gina to sometimes be labeled as disappeared. After Soul Food, she truly shined only when she played Detective Irene Daniels in The Closer from 2005 to 2009. That role proved that silence was her survival strategy in a world full of chaos. But after leaving The Closer, Gina returned to her old path, living quietly and working as though it were a duty rather than a race. By 2025, Gina Ravera is 59 years old and rarely appears in public. She participates in a few small projects and dedicates most of her time to her private life, which she fiercely protects. Her estimated net worth of about $1 million US may seem modest for a 3-decade career, but it accurately reflects the life of a woman who chose peace over spectacle. Mekhi Phifer as Lem. Mekhi Phifer was born on December 29, 1974, in Harlem, New York, raised by a determined single mother. In 1997, at just 22 years old, he played Lem, the impulsive yet sincere young husband in Soul Food, creating one of the film's most beloved characters. Lem represented men trying to live honorably amid poverty and family pressure, and Mekhi delivered the performance as though he were breathing his own truth into it. But in real life, Mekhi Phifer soon fell into a cycle of hurt that no character could pull him out of. His first marriage to actress Melinda Williams collapsed in 2003 when Mekhi was at the peak of his career and no longer had time for family. He tried to build new happiness with Oni Saratha, who gave him a son, but emotional instability and career pressure caused that relationship to fall apart as well. The back-to-back divorces left him drained, responsible for two families at once. The breaking point came in 2010, when Mekhi filed for bankruptcy after accumulating multiple debts: tax debt, credit card debt, and especially gambling debt. From being one of the brightest young stars of the 90s, shining in 8 Mile and beloved on ER as Dr. Greg Pratt, he fell into financial and emotional ruin. Working non-stop to repay debts became an obsession, trapping him in years of anxiety. By 2025, Mekhi Phifer is 50 years old and has gradually rebuilt both his career and mental health after finding stability in his third marriage to Reshelette Barnes. He continues to act, appearing in projects like Long Gone Heroes, 2024, and chooses a quieter, less chaotic life. His net worth is around $2 million USD, marking the result of a long journey of climbing back from his mistakes. Jeffrey D. Sams as Kenny. Jeffrey Demetrius Sams was born on September 1, 1966, in Cincinnati, Ohio. In 1997, at 31 years old, he played Kenny in Soul Food, a kind, responsible man haunted by the tension between his family and the difficult choices in front of him. Kenny became the image of a man trying to hold his household together in the middle of an emotional storm, adding depth to the film and offering a clear contrast to the more troubled characters. But once the cameras stopped rolling, Jeffrey Sams struggled in a very different way. His gentleness and safe face caused Hollywood to overlook him during an era obsessed with rebellious, loud personalities. His early leading roles in Medicine Ball, Sleepwalkers, and Cupid were all canceled after a single season, leaving him with deep professional wounds and a lingering sense of failure. The inability to secure consistent projects left him uncertain about the direction of his entire life. Even so, Jeffrey continued working, accepting guest roles or recurring supporting roles in Law & Order, CSI, Veronica Mars, and countless other TV series. Years spent behind the curtain, watching his peers rise to fame, exhausted him, but never broke him. Because for Jeffrey, acting was not a place for fame, but a place to survive. By 2025, Jeffrey D. Sams is 59 years old and lives privately with his wife, Lisa Marie Boursier, and their 2 children, taking small but steady television roles. He no longer hopes for stardom. He simply wants a gentle pace of life and roles that allow him to maintain pride in his craft. With an estimated net worth of $700,000 USD, he stands as the embodiment of an actor without scandals, without showiness, and without ever truly being given the chance to shine. Brandon Hammond as Ahmed. Brandon Laron. Hammond was born on February 6, 1984, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At just 13 years old, he played Ahmed in Soul Food, 1997. Becoming the narrator who carried the film's emotional core, stitching together the family's fractures with innocence and a heart far too big for his age. His performance not only moved audiences to tears, but also made Brandon one of Hollywood's brightest child stars of the late 90s. But behind the spotlight, Brandon's life carried quiet wounds. Entering the industry too young, with his mother as his manager, meant his childhood was spent under constant pressure to shine. As he grew older, his boyish face caused him to lose roles that matched his age. The disappointment stretched on for years. His halted career became even more brutal when, at age 13, Brandon was diagnosed with Castleman disease, a condition that weakened his body, lowered his immunity, and required long-term treatment. Illness, combined with Hollywood leaving him behind once he outgrew childhood roles, caused Brandon to quietly disappear from the screen. By 2025, Brandon Hammond is 41 years old and lives a quiet life and has completely shifted into directing and writing short films. The pain of his youth became the driving force behind telling stories that were more real and emotionally rich. He won Best Screenwriting at the John Singleton Short Film Competition in 2020 and continues developing personal projects. His estimated net worth of around $500,000 is modest, but enough to sustain the creative life he chose. Mel Jackson as Samuel. Mel Jackson was born on October 13, 1970, in Chicago, Illinois. In 1997, at 27 years old, he played Samuel in Soul Food, a quiet, gallant character who helped push the family's conflicts toward the truth. The role marked a major turning point, turning Mel into one of the most promising faces among young black actors of the late 1990s. But Mel Jackson's real life collapsed in ways no one expected. Once hailed as the next Denzel Washington, Mel openly rejected the Hollywood unwritten rules, the demands to compromise on image, relationships, and behind-the-scenes power. His willingness to say no immediately got him removed from major casting lists. From hit series like Living Single and The Temptations to acclaimed film projects, his career declined so rapidly that the media called it the strange disappearance of Mel Jackson. At one point, rumors even circulated that Mel had to work at McDonald's just to make ends meet. Hollywood had moved into a different era, and Mel, once standing on the edge of stardom, slowly faded into obscurity. By 2025, Mel Jackson is 54 years old and had almost completely disappeared from film and media. He occasionally appears in small indie projects, but he no longer chases fame. He chooses a private life, far from the controversies that once cost him his entire career. His estimated net worth is around $500,000, reflecting a creative life full of unfinished chapters. Marcia Wright as Nicole. Marcia Wright was born on October 30, 1969, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In 1997, at just 20 years old, she played Nicole, the young cousin in Soul Food, a short role, but one that added warmth and innocence to the crowded, emotional family scenes. Nicole did not appear much, but Marcia's natural presence gave the character a gentle highlight amid the film's heavier storylines. Yet behind that bright appearance was a career path that was anything but easy. Entering Hollywood very young, Marcia quickly felt the pressure of an industry that offered little space for young black women in minor roles. Small parts in While You Were Sleeping, Girlfriends, and the Barbershop franchise often left her feeling depressed. Marriage also brought its own challenges. Although she married director George Tillman Jr., Marcia never relied on her husband's influence to seek roles, which made it even harder to find her footing in Hollywood's calculating environment. The prolonged pressures made Marcia consider quitting many times. Balancing motherhood, maintaining a stable marriage, and trying to prove herself in a harsh entertainment industry pushed her into constant stress. When her acting career failed to take off, Marcia chose another path, becoming a teacher, acting coach, and founder of the I Am Marcia Tillman Actor Studio. It became both a place where she helped others reach their dreams and a way to heal the heavy disappointments she once carried. By 2025, Marcia Wright is 50 years old and appears occasionally in television series, but spends most of her time teaching acting and supporting her family. Her estimated net worth is around $500,000, modest, but enough for her to live according to her own choice, a life with less spotlight but far more peace. Morgan Michelle Smith as Kelly. Morgan Michelle Smith was born in the United States. In 1997, at just 20 years old, she appeared in Soul Food as Kelly, a small supporting character who added youthfulness and continuity to the story. Though she didn't have much screen time, Kelly helped complete the large family portrait that the film aimed to portray. But Morgan's path after Soul Food was far from simple. She had to face a Hollywood notoriously harsh toward young black actresses, especially those initially placed in small roles. The stress of constant rejections, casting promises that went nowhere, and the silence that followed each audition gradually eroded her confidence in her acting future. With no breakthrough roles, Morgan nearly disappeared from the screen for many years, returning only once in Sunday Dinner, the Soul Food reunion. These isolated comebacks showed that while she still wanted to act, she lacked the opportunities and foothold needed to sustain her passion. Instead of giving up completely, Morgan slowly transitioned to behind-the-scenes work and collaborated on small projects. By 2025, Morgan Michelle Smith is 50 years old and lives a simple life, occasionally joining independent productions and spending most of her time with her family. She no longer chases fame, but remains proud of her journey, especially the milestone of Soul Food in 1997. Her estimated net worth is around $500,000 USD, enough for her to live peacefully after a journey filled with challenges, but also patience and a genuine love for the craft. Lawrence Petty as Jerome. Lawrence Petty was born in the United States. In 1997, when he was 30 years old, he appeared in Soul Food as Jerome, a supporting character with light humor that helped balance the tone of the film. Although the role was small, Jerome still remained memorable to viewers thanks to Lawrence's charm and natural presence in every frame. However, after the lights of Soul Food faded, Lawrence faced a journey filled with disappointment. He continuously fell into stretches without roles, restricted to minor characters even though he was considered talented. Like many black actors of that era, Lawrence had to deal with industry biases, consistently being cast in thin, shallow roles. Financial pressure, instability, and the feeling of being forgotten pushed him through many exhausting periods. Even so, Lawrence did not leave the industry. He appeared in I Thought of You, 2006, 8, the series, 2014, and several other independent projects as a way to hold on to his original passion. But clearly, his career could never break through as he had hoped. The instability of the profession forced Lawrence to manage more of his own life and, at times, step away from the screen to pursue more reliable work. By 2025, Lawrence Petty is 59 years old and continues to live quietly and only occasionally joins small projects with friends in the industry. His estimated net worth is around $500,000 USD, reflecting a modest yet persistent career from someone who never lost his respect for the craft. Time has changed them in ways no one could have predicted. Some rose even brighter, some quietly disappeared, and some lives still leave us heartbroken when we look back. Which transformation shocked you the most? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss more surprising behind-the-scenes stories.